Now, although the Bible does not say much about the world before the flood, there are two main aspects of it that can be inferred from the biblical account with a fair degree of certainty. The first is that the world before the flood was well populated, because the flood account begins with the words from Genesis 6:1, "And it came to pass when men began to multiply upon the face of the earth." Now multiply here is the Hebrew word rubab, meaning tens of thousands, or become a great many, a multitude. In other words, it says, when men began to be a great many on the face of the earth. The second thing can be inferred from the description of the ark itself, which was constructed from an unknown type of wood that the Hebrew text simply calls gopher wood. But at 450 feet long, 75 feet wide and 45 feet high, the ark is still the largest wooden seagoing vessel ever recorded as being constructed, being more than twice the size of one of the largest wooden ships to endure in modern times, the Danish frigate Jylland, built in 1860. In fact, modern technology does not even know how to build a workable wooden ship the size of the ark. But the Lord did not make the ark magically appear. The Bible says the Lord gave Noah the plans, and Noah built or organised the building of the ark. But not in 7 days, as some skeptics want you to believe. It could have taken anywhere up to nearly 100 years, according to the biblical account. But what is implied is that the technology already existed by which such an enormous and robust ship could be built by Noah, who was but a man like everybody else. Now, it's a feat the modern world still does not know how to accomplish. In other words, the world before the flood was, by inference, a technologically advanced one. Now, if the biblical account of the flood is correct, we would expect to find a sudden truncation of a previous technologically advanced world and the start of a new one, as if the world suddenly suffered a collective case of mass amnesia and simply forgot and abandoned all of its technology and learning as if it never existed, or became but the myth of a bygone age. We would find in our archaeological ruins a curious pattern. We would find, at some point, that the lower and oldest ruins would be far more technologically advanced than the ruins of the latter developments built on top of them. And this is exactly what archaeologists have found in a number of excavations of ancient civilizations. The older ruins are by far the more technologically advanced, while the latter ruins above are of a far less technologically advanced civilization. It's as if there was a vast and ancient advanced civilization that suddenly disappeared, only to be later replaced by civilizations that had lost much of that advanced technology and knowledge. The Great Pyramid of Egypt is by far the largest and most technologically advanced of all the pyramids of Giza, yet it is also by far the oldest. The more recent pyramids around it are far inferior in size, design and construction, and bear no sign of the sophisticated technology that gave rise to the oldest one. The ruins of another unknown but technologically advanced civilization has been discovered along the Indus Valley of India, under many metres of silt and sediment, like many such ruins are found. Like the Great Pyramid of Egypt, and significantly about as old, archaeologists found that it is the lowest and oldest levels of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa that were the most technologically advanced. And one of the more disturbing things they found when they excavated the lowest levels is that in places the streets were littered with the intact skeletons of many corpses, as if overtaken by a sudden and lethal catastrophe. But even more disturbing was the discovery that these skeletons and the ruins were emitting radiation levels far in excess of normal levels. The ruins and the remains were effectively radioactive. Now, elsewhere in India, at a place called Rajasthan, about 10 miles west of modern-day Jodhpur, a housing development had to be halted when it was found that the area was over an ancient layer of highly radioactive ash. But there is also evidence elsewhere around the world of possible past nuclear events. Now, this evidence of an ancient nuclear age takes on a much more credible aspect, however, when coupled with the ancient Sanskrit Hindu text, the Mahabharata, that tells the story of an ancient, technologically advanced world, and in particular the section known as the Dronapava, that deals with what appears to be a technologically advanced war, possibly, by the descriptions it contains, even a nuclear war. Now, other evidence of an ancient and forgotten technologically advanced civilization includes such things as the so-called Temple of the Astronaut, the ancient Mayan temple and tomb of Pakal, in which lies an eons-old detailed carving of what appears to be a man piloting a rocket-propelled craft, complete with nose cone, control panel, cockpit and rear rocket flame. Then there is the remarkable Piri Reis map, discovered in the 16th century, but bearing acknowledgements that it was compiled from maps that existed at least as far back as the 4th century. How far they existed before that, we don't know. What we do know is that it shows the circumference of the Earth to within 50 miles of accuracy, that it is an accurate aerial projection map of all the continents of the world, that it is compiled from maps that take into account the curved surface of the Earth based on an exceedingly accurate measure of its circumference. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the map is that it accurately records Antarctica as it exists under the mile-thick ice cap. It records an Antarctica that is free of the ice cap. Now, according to ice core samples taken from Antarctica, the last time it was free of ice was around 4000 to 11,000 BC. Then there are the strange hieroglyphics in the ancient Egyptian temple of Abydos, discovered when another layer of already ancient hieroglyphics fell off to reveal the still older original wall beneath. What is fascinating about these carvings is that they appear to be pictures of helicopters, aeroplanes and other strange vehicles. The skeptics want you to believe that they are just random results of weathering that just happen to have a vague resemblance to a selection of modern flying vehicles all in the one panel. But why not decide for yourself if these are the results of hugely improbable random chance weathering? Then, of course, there are the massive monolithic stoneworks of the ancients that still exist today, some already part of a structure a great many miles from where they were excavated, others still remaining at the excavation site, and yet others only partially excavated, as if all this building work was suddenly interrupted by some major catastrophe and never ever resumed again. The thing is, these solid monolithic building blocks and carved stone objects are not roughly hewn by primitive chisels and hammers. They are smoothly cut and sliced and shaped by unknown technology, for which we have no record, and which only now, with our modern technology, we can even come close to reproducing. But even if we could cut and shape them, many are so massive and heavy that even now we do not have either the technology or the materials capable of conveying them a few yards, let alone a great many miles. Something the ancients could do with great regularity, it would seem. But where did this knowledge suddenly disappear to? We find evidence of this mysterious stoneworking technology all over the world, even in isolated places like Easter Island. For it to just disappear means that the whole world had to collectively just forget how to do it. Mid-construction, it would seem. For all over the world we find partially excavated monoliths, or monoliths still at the excavation site ready to be moved. It's as if suddenly, without warning, all the people around the world who knew how to do this stuff, and were doing this stuff, suddenly disappeared, or died. Then there is the ever-growing collection of manufactured artefacts that are being discovered in coal seams and rocks that are supposed to be millions of years old, according to the die-hard evolutionists. Now, in a 10-minute video clip, I can barely scratch the surface of the ever-mounting evidence that somewhere in the past this planet hosted or witnessed a technologically advanced civilization and highly organised population of considerable size. A civilization and population that was all but totally wiped out by a catastrophic and earth-changing flood, but of which scattered evidence of both civilization and flood still exists to this day. But I hope I have at least given a few leads and a few search keywords to those who are seriously seeking the truth about the reality in which they live. Thank you.